The US economy has had a strong start to 2012. GDP has rebounded, unemployment is at a 3-year low, and in a widely viewed Super Bowl ad, Clint Eastwood proclaimed that it's halftime in America and the second half is about to begin. With me to discuss the US economy and presidential politics is Roger Altman, former Deputy Secretary to the Treasury and Chairman of Evercore Partners. So Roger, is Clint right? Is America back?
It's a bit too soon to judge. A lot of the forecasts for 2012 are still what I would call tepid, looking at rates of growth in the 2% vicinity, and a lot of those forecasts also have year-end unemployment rates which actually are higher than the most recent 8.3% rate. So a good beginning, but too soon to judge whether it'll turn into a strong year.
And what are you looking for then to determine whether Clint is right? What are the indicators that you'll be keeping an eye on?
Well, of course, the most basic of all is growth. Now, we just saw a 2.8% rate for the fourth quarter, just reported roughly 2 weeks ago. That is not as high as people had hoped. And then when you dissected it, you saw that inventory accumulation accounted for a disproportionate share of that, and real final sales actually were fairly weak. And so that was not considered a strong sign. Now, of course, we just had, so growth, number one. Number two, I would say job growth. We just had a very good number, 243,000 jobs created in January, best number in quite some time. And the third, I think, key index is housing, which has been the biggest single, housing and the weak labor markets have been the two biggest downward pressures on the US economy.
And that's the short term, if you like. Right. More broadly in Washington, there is a discussion about whether America is in decline. Is that a useful discussion? And if so, what does it mean? And what does it mean for policy?
I think it's fundamentally a political discussion rather than a truly analytical one. Okay. As to the question of whether America actually is in decline, I would say the answer to that is likely no from an economic point of view, and likely inevitably yes from the point of view of its global role. I mean, after all, we're witnessing the rise of China, the rise of India, and inevitably the unipolar world that we have seen for the last several decades with the U.S. dominating is going to balance out. That's inevitable. It's in line with history, and there's nothing wrong with it. But as to whether the United States is in long-term economic decline, I think the answer to that is no. And I think the answer to that is no for demographic reasons. You know, we continue to have a relatively young population by world standards, younger, for example, than China. We continue to have consistent immigration flows, which are have always been an important source of American growth. And of course, we continue to lead the world in technology, which is, if you had to pick one area to lead the world in, you'd pick that one.
And just very briefly, this all forms a backdrop to the upcoming election. How do you see it going?
Well, the last 2 or 3 months have been kind to President Obama's chances. First, the improved economic data, even though I'm saying it's too soon to judge. Second, he has repositioned himself a bit with a semi-populist stance, particularly his speech in Kansas and then the State of the Union speech, which is resonating well with the American people. And thirdly, there's some moderate disarray on the Republican side as their nomination, the struggle for their nomination is a little ugly. The combination of those have improved his standing in the polls. He's now, for the first time in a long time, around 50% on approval ratings. And he is well ahead in the so-called head-to-head matchups, Obama versus Romney, Obama versus potential others. It's way too soon to judge, but his prospects have improved. And if you look on the betting sites, which I like to do, he's gone from about 50% even maybe a touch under, about 3 or 4 months ago, to 60% probability of re-election.
Fantastic, Roger. Thank you.
My pleasure.
And for more comment, go to ft.com/A-list. Thank you.